God, we're in such a weird state with Destiny right now, man. We're in such a weird state. Does anyone here care about drops in Destiny anymore? No, it's underwhelming. There is kind of an argument going on in the Destiny community right now, guys. The argument is craftable rolls versus RNG drops. Scarrow, he says right here, my legacy is me and crafting's #1 hater. I will die happy. Hyperbole aside here, I truly believe two things. Number one, crafting doesn't belong anywhere near new in-game content. Old raid revamps, sure, whatevs. A crafted weapon should never be best in slot for PvE. Make them good enough to do content, but never the absolute best. So this is a point that's been made by a lot of like veteran, longtime players of Destiny about the debate of like RNG drops versus craftable rolls. And look, whatever your take may be, and like I don't disagree with Skirro completely here either, right? I understand the idea of like RNG drops and the joy that you get for when something drops in the game after completing an activity and it being a god roll. And I feel like a lot of veteran players kind of like, we talk about the time when that god roll palindrome or that god roll whatever would drop for you after an extended period of farming for that item. And if it was the god roll, you remember that has now been infused in your memory forever. You know, if you got the god roll IS Luna back in Destiny 1, hot damn it, man, you need to know, like, if you got that hidden hand rangefinder rifle barrel roll with sure shot or true sight back inside of Destiny 1, brother, you know, and it's crazy that I remember that roll, but that's how good of a roll it was. And also simultaneously how elusive that roll was. I say right here, unfortunately, I wish crafting was the enemy. Right now, D2 is just not evolving in any meaningful way. I don't envy the team having to take on this behemoth of a task, no pun intended, in 2025. We kind of like, we're at this point in Destiny. We're like, what's the enemy? What's the reason for the player decline? Is it crafting? Crafting. It's taking away the incentive for grinding out. Those players that would be grinding those activities over and over, they got their craftable rolls and they've bounced. But to be quite honest with you, this season, we've already taken a step back from crafting. We've taken a step back from crafting and the results have not really been good. Now listen, it hasn't really been good. We're breaking records in a bad way as far as lower player counts go. I think the enemy is not necessarily crafting versus RNG. I think after at least my time playing games like Path of Exile 2 over the past 30 days, also playing Warframe, is that the systems in Destiny from a fundamental level, like foundational level here, just feel dated. And let's take Path of Exile, for instance. Think about how often your dopamine is being released, right? Think about how often you get that dopamine high. It can happen at any moment. That's the beautiful thing about Path of Exile. You're like, dude, I'm killing, I'm slaying. Oh, there's a rare monster. I'm gonna kill it. Oh, what's that just dropped? And it could be a variety of different things. And I would argue and say that like, you probably only have a 2 to 3 minute downtime in between the next dopamine hit inside of Path of Exile. And that's really important because the job of a game maker is to put you, at least in these type of games, is to put you on a treadmill. In this case, a loot treadmill. It says, hey, you're trading your time and we're gonna give you, you know, little dopamine hits along the way. In Path of Exile, because of the randomness of the maps, especially in in-game when you start mapping, and the randomness of enemies, and the fact that you can affect those things. You can actually go in there and affect the waystones. You can actually dictate your own in-game. You're now in a situation where you can overload the entire map with tons of rare monsters, which means you have the potential for amazing drops. But wait, in doing so, you're now going to give everything 300 to 400% crit chance and critical hit damage, which means you can be instantly one-tapped. So there's a clear upside and a clear downside. The point is, though, is that it keeps you on the loot treadmill and it keeps you engaged. Destiny's system is all about activity completion. We don't care if we kill 30 champions. We just want to kill the champion as quickly as we can so that we can get to the end of the activity and we can potentially get a god roll, right? So between the beginning of that activity to the end, you've got about a 15 to 20 minute downtime period before you get that high. Has anyone ever stopped in the middle of a strike, a middle of a Grandmaster Nightfall, and been like, wow, let me go kill that monster over there, or that ad over there, because there's a potential that ad may drop something. Let me kill that tormentor because there's a potential that it's going to drop something amazing for me. All you care about is getting through the activity as quickly as you can. You don't care about slaying out anything. And there's also no difference in your run. You run that Grandmaster Nightfall outside of the weekly modifiers. it's exactly the same. There's no difference. You'll have things like oscillation that rolls through, different modifiers, but for the most part, it is the exact same thing. The beautiful thing about things like Path of Exile is that it is a completely different map every time you load in. And so you're on this quest to completely clear everything out. Plus you have Fog of War and whatnot. All right, so how do we fix Destiny's loot system? Well, it's not as easy as get rid of weapon crafting and go back to RNG. It's also not as easy as saying, hey, let's just give everything crafting, right? This is unfortunately where a sequel makes sense. When you have an overhaul of systems like this is when, hey, a Destiny 3 is required. Or if not a Destiny 3, a Final Fantasy 14, a Realm Reborn, okay? This is a foundational shift in how loot rolls out in the game. So imagine a world in Destiny where you do load into some area that is randomly generated, that is new, that maybe you have the ability to dictate, similar to mapping inside of Path of Exile. And I know a lot of people are going to say, Cross, you just glazed in Path of Exile. Look, I play a lot of different games. We have been here recently, especially with Destiny kind of taking a downturn. And this has given us an opportunity to try a bunch of different things and see what works and what doesn't. But imagine a Destiny where everything is random. You don't know if you're going to get 1 tormentor or 10 tormentors. You can dictate that in some way. Not only that, there's going to be a host of different modifiers on these different enemy types. You don't care necessarily about the activity completion may be important in a means of extracting your loot, similar to Warframe. You have to still complete the activity and extract, but killing those ads, slaying those monsters, even the ones with a stack of different modifiers, which Bungie's trying to work toward with Banes. That's the whole reason why they're trying to include Banes. They see this issue. But slaying all those monsters, those high rarity monsters that are very, very difficult, is going to be extremely important, as you will be getting loot right there on the spot. Imagine in a world where we didn't just have an Ingram drop on the ground for us. The beautiful thing about Path of Exile is, like, you see the loot, you know what it is. You could see it. That thing just slaps there on the ground and you're like, holy hell, there it is, a divine. You know what I mean? Holy hell, there it is, a unique. This is something that I would love to see in Destiny. Randomly generated areas with random ads that you can influence, okay, and beef it up as much as you want. And in-game, that progressively continues to scale with as strong as you want to get. The other question that brings up too, by the way, is like whether or not our subclass layout would even allow for such a thing. The other thing is bringing loot, pulling that away from actually doing activity completions, which is really just everybody becoming a speedrunner or trying to become a speedrunner. The whole goal is like, how fast can I complete this activity? And instead of bringing that loot treadmill being between start to finish 15, 20 minutes to get that dopamine hit, it can happen at any point, as long as you are killing those rare enemies throughout that entire activity, strike, whatever. All right. I've got more to add right now. I'm just kind of giving y'all a breather. This is just something that has been like replaying in my mind over and over for like the past week. Now, that brings me to the other thing. Rare monsters, right? Okay, you give me a Tormentor that has 14 different Banes on it, and he's practically harder than the entire Strike boss. What, I kill him and I get an adept drop? This is why I said a sequel may be the only way, man. We need an overhaul to our loot system. There's a way to make crafting work in Destiny and still have RNG be a part of it. Path of Exile is very much RNG based, but guess what? It has crafting. It has the ability to apply different augmented orbs to a single item, which can either make or break that item. And the beautiful thing that I love that game possesses is it says, hey, you can get the best item in the game, a unique with all the best attributes, the highest you could possibly get on it. But wouldn't you like it to be a little bit better? How about you take a Vow Orb and corrupt that bitch? And see, corruption is a beautiful thing. Imagine something like this system inside of Destiny, where you're looking at your favorite exotic. Maybe you're looking at Stompies on a hunter, and you can corrupt that item. I know I'm getting crazy here, all right? But when you corrupt, let's just take this as an example. When you corrupt Stompies inside of Destiny, you're taking a currency and you're applying this rare currency, by the way, and you're applying it straight to that item. 3 things can happen. Number 1, Stompies becomes incredibly more powerful. Imagine Stompies, and everyone's gonna be like, Cross is gonna break the game. I know. That's the point, because you're grinding your ass off, have some game breaking shit. Imagine if you corrupt Stompies, and now you can jump 4 times. I know. That's when that break things, you get an extra jump on top of everything else, or triple jump with better strafe. Okay, that's option number 1. Option number 2, you apply this rare currency to Stompies and it does nothing. It literally has no change. But then option number 3 will brick your item. You apply that rare currency to your Stompies, and now your Stompies can either A, disappear, B, could fuck the stats into, or C, yeah, I guess that would actually be your only two options. Fuck the stats, take away a jump. You could do something like that. You could take away a jump. So fuck the stats, take away a jump, or delete the item. PoE doesn't have PvP. That's the issue. Beautiful thing you brought that up, everybody. All corrupted items will be banned from PvP. Makes sense from a lore perspective. Shaxx doesn't want you going there using corrupted items or whatever Bungie wants to call it. They don't have to call it corrupt. You just don't bring it inside of PvE. It's banned. It literally is X'd out. You can't even equip it. Boom, done. I'm trying to think of different ways we could spice up just loot in general. Because I'm gonna be honest, guys, I just don't care about loot right now. Like I just don't care. There's nothing about loot in Destiny that makes me really care about. You know, it's like there are a couple weapons that stand out, like Tenacious and stuff like that I'll farm for, but for the most part I just don't care. And I think the final thing on this to spice the loot up is let me just circle back there. There is a way to make RNG and crafting one and the same. Okay, there is a way to make it work, and Path of Exile has a system, and it's not perfect, but it does work, where RNG is very much an important factor. You can also dictate things with the crafting that they have. It's limited, as you can only just apply the orbs, and what you get is what you get, but it's there. Now, a huge reason why they're able to do this and it work is they do have trading in their game, and that is a whole nother can of worms that I don't know if Bungie will ever do. And but Warframe's got trading too, maybe. The other thing that I think Bungie would need to do, and again, these are huge overhaul changes that I'm gonna be honest, guys, I just don't see ever happening in Destiny 2. The other thing would be finally give us, like, it's a weird thing because exotics are already exotic, but they're so damn common. The other thing I don't like about exotics is you just go pick it up from the kiosk. I think maybe if it's possible, and I just don't know how it would be that much different than what we have currently, but if you had a chance of a unique dropping, this is going beyond the rarity of exotic, of it dropping in one of those encounters that I talked about, where it's like, yeah, you just chose to load out your in-game strike with 14 tormentors. It's going to be hard as hell, and if you don't finish the activity, you can't take the loot with you, and if you don't kill them, you won't get the loot to drop. It's going to be hard, but there's a possibility that a unique or even an uber unique could drop from you from those super difficult bosses or ads, whatever, rare bosses, whatever. Man, that would spice things up. What are we talking, like 5% chance or anything higher? I mean, look, you know, there's some influence you can have on this in Path of Exile. You can actually acquire gear that allows for rare items to drop for you. You know, something like that could work, you know, maybe in Destiny. You know, I don't know. I don't know what the perfect number would be. But you know, you can't just go out there and just like, let me go farm the lowest level ad in the game. You know what I mean? Bungie caters to the average player. It's not vets. I think they just want people to play their game, guys. This is not an average player versus vet player. Can I just say both are quitting right now? All right, both are quitting. Whether you're PvP or PvE player, there are other desirable games to play over Destiny right now, and they're playing them. You know, the reason why something like this will most likely not be implemented is, like, I'm just talking here. That's the easy part, right? Making these suggestions is the easy part. Implementing it is the bitch. That's the hard part. Again, why I say I do not envy the team that has now taken over everything at Bungie. They're not only having to take on this behemoth of a task, but they're also having to take in with a smaller team than they had before. This is not the kind of thing, like, you would think that the final shape would require a bigger team. Yes, that is the ending to the saga, but this overall system will take an even bigger team than even that. And so now they're undermanned. There is no systems that was being worked on in the background that we hoped for, that being a Destiny 3. Just sucks, dude. We'll see what plays out, man. Smaller teams aren't always a bad thing. Sometimes big teams get gummed up. Smaller teams in this situation is a bad thing. If smaller teams wasn't a bad thing, we wouldn't have as buggy of a season as we had. Right now, I feel like the philosophy with the higher ups at Bungie is save a dollar, lose a player. See how long that works? If a Destiny 3 is ever made, it will not be, it'd be Sony making it, in my opinion. It'd be Bungie making it, but it'd be after Sony has completely absorbed Bungie, you know? Oh, look, man. Yeah, like Bradley's having a blast with gameplay. Dude, none of us would be having this conversation or would even give a damn if Destiny wasn't a fun game to play. Thank God it's a fun game to play. You know what I mean? Thank God it's got good gunplay. I mean, that may be like one of the only things outside of day one content, like day one raids, dungeons and whatnot, that keeps people hooked. Crafting has been removed this act. The player numbers have been worse. I would say, I get where Scaro's coming from, though. No, I do. I just think that the entire system needs an overhaul. I think there's a way, just like Path of Exile, where you have RNG and crafting interwoven together. It's still RNG. It's just, you know, you could dictate it a bit with applying augments to it. And of course, they have a trading system, which helps out on that end as well. Not everything is perfect in Path of Exile, by the way. I'm not saying that it's perfect. All I'm saying is right now, Destiny's system feels outdated. This trend may continue throughout this year. Maybe not. Maybe not. I hope I'm wrong. I hope whatever Bungie brings in Apollo and Behemoth is going to spice things up more. I don't know. I don't know, man. Destiny does not respect players' time or investment anymore. It's not about respected time. Fuck that. If I want to play a game that dumps loot on me, I could just go play Borderlands. You think I care about that? No. It's the scaling, man. It's not about just dumping a shit ton of loot on you and just being like, yeah, let me play inventory management every time I play this game. As you immerse yourself into the systems of the game, you could dictate in-game the way you can in things like Path of Exile, to where you can make it stupid difficult, ridiculously difficult. You have tremendous upside for it, but you got to have the gear and builds to do so. And then not only that, every game has a loot treadmill. The responsibility of the game developer is to never let you, the gamer, ever realize you're on a treadmill. You're not supposed to. You kind of realize it's there. You may realize it after you get off for a second, but then you voluntarily jump back on the treadmill. The problem is people are not staying on the treadmill anymore for Destiny. What other FPS looters games has lasted 10 years though? Maybe it's just finally it's time. There are tons of MMOs that are still going, but here's the thing, you know, Bungie hasn't exactly added MMO features. Look, I haven't even gotten into like the Warframe argument. By the way, we're going to be making like our like first 100 hours review of Warframe so far, but just about every MMO aspect that I've preached about for years exists in Warframe, and it sucks that we don't have it inside of Destiny. The fact that I can, you know, I can fly in that game. I can get in my ship. I can customize my ship. Holy hell, you could completely do all kinds of crazy things to your ship. The fact that I could start a clan dojo and have what appears to be just like an infinite amount of things I can add to this clan social area. These are MMO features, by the way, that exist in so many different games, but I'm taking Warframe as the example, as that's a game directly in competition with Destiny. I mean, practically same genres, different systems, different way things roll, loot, all that stuff. Like, I'm not talking about from a mechanic perspective. I'm just talking about from like a looter shooter perspective, right? These are systems that we've been talking about for a long time that have not been added here to Destiny. Social features are important. You know, these are the kind of things that will lock you into. So we just talked about systems and loot and in-game mechanics and whatnot, and randomization of things, enemies and whatnot based on Path of Exile. But like social elements, man, I mean, I could draw from Warframe, Final Fantasy, everything else. I mean, these are things that can also lock communities in and would be great for something like Destiny. And it also just like goodwill stuff too. Look, if I could show off my gear from years of playing Destiny, I'd be happy. Imagine a giant ribbon skull for beating the raid in hard mode. Imagine your ship. You can actually customize your ship inside of Destiny, and like one side of your ship or multiple rooms in your ship you have dedicated to different dungeon bosses and raid bosses that you have slayed. And maybe it's like, you know, certain things. Maybe it's like you killed Riven day one, which was only a handful of people, right? But maybe your Riven skull in that part of the ship is a little bit different than everybody else's, and people know when they go to your ship. They're like, oh my God, you did that day one? You know what I mean? That's at the bottom of the list. These are all various things, the things that accumulate to this game being meaningful to play, okay? I don't think it's just one major thing. Although there are some overhaul systems here that would make Destiny a lot better that I don't know would be possible for Destiny 2. I think Bungie took a lot of risks with the final shape, and we got to give them credit for that. Prismatic was a big risk. Exotic class items, big risk. Ergo Sum, exotic sword with all the different combinations, big risk. You know, I mean, the Ergo Sum, exotic class items, these are all things that, like, from a balance perspective, they were really concerned about it breaking, and it obviously didn't break the game. It hasn't broken the game. I don't think exotic class items have broken the game. You want to talk about risk? How can you company justify trying to create a new IP like Marathon instead of just continuing to improve and support a game like Destiny 2? Got me, fellas. You got me, man. I don't know. Look, I'm not entirely against Marathon either. You know what I mean? There are people that are working on Marathon that's all they've worked on. That has been the only game they worked on, and I know they're putting their heart and soul into it. But that is something, you know, Bungie could have just stayed solo. They could have never been bought up by Sony. They didn't have to get bought up. Or maybe they did. Maybe the financials definitely pushed them in that direction. But, you know, they got there for a reason. You know, they could have just kept cooking Destiny. We could imagine a world where Destiny was still owned by Bungie. And then a lot of people are going to be like, well, no, it's not really owned. It's still owned by Bungie. Bullshit. Sony is taking over Bungie. We literally see it from the top down. People are literally going to Sony that had the same positions at Bungie. It's happening. But imagine a world where Bungie did completely own Destiny, and Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy and whoever else was working on a sequel, you know, or this overhaul, system overhaul. And right after Final Shape, we go into like August, September, and Bungie's like, boom, this is the path forward. And they reveal this whole new overhaul, which is going to take us into the next decade of Destiny. It didn't happen that way, man. And right now, I think Bungie's big concern is getting Marathon out the door, trying to stay profitable. D is doing that with Soulframe. They're working on a new game while still investing in evolving Warframe. It can be done. Bungie is the reason Destiny 2 is in trouble, not Sony. Yeah, no shit. You want to say the most obvious stuff in here right now? If Bungie was in such a good state, they would have never even sold to begin with. I think Sony just wants, you know, Bungie to make money, just like you would want with any investment. And Marathon is as of right now, a year late, maybe 2. I don't know, maybe 2. When was it supposed to come out? It was supposed to come out this year, right? Marathon was originally supposed to come out 2024.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.